I'm bringing you some more Final Fantasy VII Rebirth content today. We're going to be going over an article, an interview in fact, with Naoki Hamaguchi, and this is coming from the folks at RPGFan.com. I'll leave a link down below to the article, so if you want to check it out for yourselves, feel free to do so, then come back, because essentially all we're going to be doing is reading through the interview, and I'm going to be throwing in my thoughts and opinions here and there. So if you're here for that, that's great. If not, I highly suggest you just go check out the article for yourself, because it's a great read. So with that all being said, what is up guys, Jen here, hope you're all doing well. Welcome back to the channel. Got you covered with timestamps, so if there's a certain question you want to skip to or a certain section in the video, feel free to do so, whatever floats your boat. All I ask is for you to support the channel and hit the thumbs up button. So I ain't going to waste too much time, we're going to get straight into it. So let me just change the scenes here, and we're going to go straight in to question number one. My first question is, what character, new or returning, was the hardest to get into Rebirth combat system compared to the original game? Hamaguchi says pretty much all the monsters and bosses are carefully crafted. We put effort into all of them. I would say the Materia Guardian in the demo you got to play, while it does seem kind of familiar to the Guard Scorpion, they are very different. So we made sure that the gameplay experience for defeating these enemies felt different, but very rewarding for an early boss fight. Now, there is quite an editorial note just at the top here, because there was a bit of confusion with the first question, but it turns out that both questions get asked about enemies and characters. First, we're talking about the enemies, and it's nice to see that the Materia Guardian is going to serve as our Guard Scorpion, even though they're saying that they do feel similar in kind of terms of what they're offering. What we learned in that Nibelheim flashback leading up to that combat-wise, we're going to be throwing at the Materia Guardian, and I'm very excited to see what the different phases of that fight is going to be. Looking at the gameplay that we've been provided, it looks pretty good, and I'm very excited to play it for ourselves. Release the demo, Square, give us the demo. Hamaguchi also says, regarding fitting the characters into Rebirth, we seriously considered each of their roles and wanted to keep the balance within the game. So we also considered the overall image that the fans of the series may have towards the characters, so there are appropriate exceptions for these. These are the things that we really look into consideration. For example, with Red 13, he is the kind of character that has a lot of close range attacks, but we also want to differentiate that from another character like Cloud who can do the same thing. So Red 13 will have more of a timing based attack based on his ability to guard. This leads to his revenge mode ability that's specific to him and makes him unique. As for Cait Sith, we can't go into a lot of details at this point, but we did see in the trailers riding into battle on the fat Moogle, which will come into play in battle. Whether he is riding the Moogle or not will make a difference in his playstyle during battle. His dice element will also be a part of his attack, so in this way we kept the elements of the characters that the fans love while making them balance with actions in battles. It's something that we took great care in doing. Now that is great news. I was worried that when you introduce more characters to a game, especially with Final Fantasy VII and its remake series, that the melee based characters are going to feel very similar. So we already have close quarters combat with Tifa, and we have it with Cloud. Adding Red 13 into the mix, you would think that this is going to be similar, but with a few tweaks here and there. Now, seeing that he has got like timing based attacks, which kind of lead into his revenge mode, like his gauge that he has is really nice, and it kind of adds that layer, and it makes me very excited to see future characters that will come in the third game with Vincent and Sid, and also looking at Cait Sith as well, with the fact that he has his dices. Is he going to have elements that he brought to the table with his slots? So if we want to get that insta-kill on some super bosses, can he do it here in Rebirth? I'm really excited to see, but I'm really interested in Cait Sith in particular, because I think a lot of people in the original didn't really use him. I speak for myself, I'm not going to speak for others, so let me know in the comment section below, but I essentially only used him when I wanted to go for that insta-kill with his slots. Apart from that, I didn't really use him. Now, adding these elements into Rebirth, I'm really excited to kind of really try the characters. I'm very interested to see what my final three may be going into some of the end game with Rebirth. Approximately how many minigames are playable in the Gold Saucer? Do you have a favorite, or one you're excited for players to finally get their hands on? For minigames, save for a few of them, pretty much all are from the original games, and they're going to be recreated for Rebirth. For example, with the Mog House minigame, minigame that used to be in the Gold Saucer, this has now been moved to the world map, and we can experience the Mog House without being in the Gold Saucer. As for my favorite one, and that I'm really excited for players to experience, I would say the Chocobo races, which will tie into the main story as well. Like all the side content in this game, the Chocobo races are really well developed, and it's a mini game that I can easily see the fans getting into because of all the aspects to it. To add to that, the fans of the original games, or people that have played the original, have this image of the Gold Saucer was a place for minigames and the hub for those activities. This time around there will be minigames within the Gold Saucer and some outside of it, scattered across the world. They will be uncovered by exploring certain locations or talking to certain characters. For example, the card game is played by characters worldwide. By continuing the journey and progressing the story, you unlock new minigames and new opponents across the world. I think players will come out of it with a feeling that the entire world of Rebirth offers so much in terms of activities to enjoy. Now, reading that again, reading most of this, I'm going to be very pleased and excited. This especially, the minigames made Final Fantasy VII to a certain extent for me. It was always nice to have that place to go back to in the Gold Saucer and do some Chocobo racing, go on the roller coaster randomly, doing Mog's House. I only did it once, I think, per playthrough, but you got the snowboarding, you had the submarine, you had the fighting minigame, and we're having all of that included here. I don't think we'll see the submarine probably until part 3. It goes for snowboarding as well, I think we can guess. But seeing all of this makes me very happy. They touched on Mog's House because we did see during the TGS gameplay demo with the grasslands that Mog's House is indeed in the world map, and I think there's going to be like 3 or 4 scattered in each region, and you kind of do each different mini game as you go, and then the whole story concludes in something. Then once it's done, you get a reward for it, but then you can go back and do the individual mini games to get like a leaderboard or something like that. That's what I'm guessing, but it's nice to see that Mog's kind of house and its story is going to be interweaved as you kind of travel through the world of Rebirth. Also, they brought up Chocobo races and how they are going to be very more intuitive in regards to it's going to be forever developing. We know that we can collect cosmetics that we can have on the Chocobo as we're going through Rebirth, but they do indeed in fact statistics when we go into the Chocobo races, and they also said that Chocobo races get introduced into the main story. They tie in. We think we all know where this is going to be playing into it is when we go down to the Corral prison and we need to make our way back up to the ranks. We meet good old Joe and his black Chocobo, and we go to the races and get ourselves out there. I think it's going to be true to the fact, and that's when Chocobo racing will be unlocked to us as a whole. I don't think when we first enter the Gold Saucer we'll be able to go straight to Chocobo racing. I think once we've done that scenario in the story, then we can go and do what we like, and there may be more unlocks as we go. Maybe we meet more jockeys across the world of Rebirth or something like that, just to kind of not get you to fully invest, but kind of fully invest, so you get to a certain point and then you hit that kind of wall and then you progress with the story and you're like, hey, this guy looks like a Chocobo jockey, and it turns out he is, and he's like, well, I'll race you next time you're at the Gold Saucer. I should imagine it's going to be something like that. And then again, Queen's Blood is mentioned here. I'm very excited to see what it brings to the table, literally, and just all of the unlocks and all the different cards that we can collect. I hope we've got a big list here, and I hope we'll get some character cards as well. So the next question, in the trailers we have seen the synergy team attacks. Will everyone have a team attack with every character? For example, like Chrono Trigger, or will it be limited to a specific grouping of characters? Thank you for this great question. To answer it simply, all characters will have a synergy attacks with every character pairing. Sort of the reason why we decided to do it this way was to give players that freedom and fun of choosing through trial and error, their favourite pairings, or trying unique pairings that they hadn't tried before. If we were to have it so only specific characters could only be able to synergy, that will go against our idea of freedom and enjoyment for the player. We really want to keep the idea of freedom for the players, despite knowing that a lot of hard work and graphic resources went into making it this way, and RPG Fan replied with that they appreciate that. So let's just kind of chime in here. Really excited to see synergy attacks. I really like the line that Hamaguchi brings here, is the trial and error. I love that about games. I love making mistakes and learning from them and seeing the best way to use a synergy attack, or best way to use in a pairing against a certain monster maybe, or a certain situation, and bringing someone in and doing it that way. Really excited to dive in deeper and see what all the synergy attacks are about. Will we get three-way synergies? They've not talked about anything about that yet, but I think we might. Maybe. We will see. But let's carry on with this. We get last from the room, and Hamaguchi adds, on top of this, each character is going to have their own skill tree in which one could develop and gain new synergy actions and abilities for their favorite characters. For players that really like Cloud and Aerith, they can focus entirely on them or any pairings. We just want to give the players choice and freedom to pick what they like the best or what they feel is most suitable for defeating certain bosses or enemies. I think it can be a really fun experience, and I agree. I'm going to have a barrel of a time kind of like mashing up different characters and using synergy attacks. Like I've just mentioned, it's going to be a trial and error, and I'm sure we're going to see guides on YouTube and the best pairings and the best situation, but we will be very excited. The fact that we've got a skill tree as well, it's more investment and more menus to go through, but I'm really excited to just see what they are going to be bringing to the table, and it really kind of expands on the combat of Remake that we got, and Rebirth is going to be spectacular. The question is, what are they going to do for the third game? Maybe that's when we might get trio attacks, but for now, very excited that we're getting synergy attacks. In Remake, we saw the use of summons like Leviathan and Bahamut, who were not available at that point in the original game. So far, we have seen Alexander in the trailers. A summon, as far as we know, is from a part of the original that would not be explorable yet in Rebirth. So my question is, are we going to expect to see more summons from a further in the story of Rebirth? And which summon is your favorite so far? I like the way that they ask this question, because I believe we get Alexander in the Gaia Cliff section, and the way that they've mention this is to see if they can get Hamaguchi to slip that, oh, don't worry, Alexander's still in the original place there he was, to kind of reveal the speculation that we have at the moment of where the game is ending. We know it's at the Forgotten Capital, but we don't know if they're going to mishmash that with the Northern Kratos part of the game. So that was very smart on their part, but I don't think he went into too much detail to reveal anything. But let's get into that answer just now. Great question for this as well. I can't reveal exactly which summons are in Rebirth so far, but I would like to say that the summons are Materia from the live stream in the original Final Fantasy VII, but outside of that, they didn't really go much into their background or how they came into existence. So for Rebirth, we will explore a little bit more into that. For example, there are areas that will be tied into the summons, like an area where a specific summon was once revered or once existed. With Chadley, the player will be exploring some of those aspects and will be shedding a bit more light on that. Okay, so that's really interesting. We're getting more backstory on the summons, and I think we got a bit of this on Remake. I think in particular Shiva, it had in its description that she protected or mended the northern crater to a certain extent when Genova fell from the skies. I might be wrong, and I'm sure someone will kind of correct that for me, but we did indeed get a bit of like backstory on some of the summons in its enemy intel section on Remake. It's really nice to see that they're going to expand on that, and we've also seen from screenshots and gameplay that we are going to be collecting summon crystals. I think this might tie into the question we're going to be getting next, so I won't go into it too much detail now, but more lore for summons, more lore for Final Fantasy VII, more lore in Rebirth. I'm excited. Like, my most favorite game of all time is getting blown open, and I'm getting more information and more storytelling at its finest, and I couldn't be happier. So let's move on to the next one. As a follow-up to the summons question, are the summons going to interact differently this time around than in Remake? In Remake, you just summon them and they fight alongside you, but we saw in Final Fantasy XVI how amazing and spectacular the summons can really get. Do you have any plans to maybe change that system, or is it going to be the same as what we saw in Remake? Hamaguchi replies, saying for Rebirth, there isn't something that is incorporated summons into the main story per se, but with Remake, you may recall that the Materia itself did not exactly level up. This time around, however, there is a growth element that is kind of different from AP. By playing minigames or progressing through certain content in the story, the summons Materia's ability will grow. In that way, this is sort of growth factor tied to the side content of the game. Now, this kind of ties into me talking about the summon crystals. These seem to be scattered around the world. These must be one of the elements that Hamaguchi mentions that we can use to increase the growth of the materia of the summons. It seems like none of the summons are going to be tied into the main story, but we may get some side quests here and there that may allude to them. We're definitely going to get some dialogue off Chadley here, there, and everywhere, and we know that we're getting the Gilgamesh summon side quest as well, which I'm really interested to see how it falls into Rebirth and what it brings to the table. Hamaguchi also says, so I have a question for you. You know that in Final Fantasy VII, there are those weapon creatures. If we were to introduce them like summons as another kind of entity-like creature, do you think that would be too much, or would you enjoy it? And RPG fan speaks for me here as well. I think that would be very cool. Giant kaiju battles are awesome. Again, we get laughs from the room. Actually, I enjoyed it a lot in Final Fantasy 16. It was a lot of fun to do stuff like that, but who knows, whenever we get to fight the weapons, you know, they're really big, maybe we need big summons as well, and that gets more laughs from the room. And Hamaguchi said, we'll take it into consideration. So I don't know what we can take from there, but maybe we might get a weapon fight in Rebirth somewhere. We've seen it kind of appear in Rebirth trailer, but I do think that that is just a scene from Cosmo Canyon, because you've got Tifa floating there and watching it, and you're probably thinking, well, why is she floating? She must be in the live stream. Well, if you go back and watch Remake and watch when they first introduced the kind of video on the Ancients, as they kind of zoom into that, they're all floating as well. So that's why I'm getting that vibe from that scene of the trailer. So the final question is maybe the most important. I'm a big fan of dressing up characters in the games, and I would like to know if there's cosmetics this time around. Maybe put Barrett into a sailor suit, and I'll keep him in it the rest of the game, because I know he loves that suit in the original game. This is a great question too, thank you. Throughout Rebirth, there are going to be occasions with optional or mandatory clothing changes. These align with the circumstance or the story. As far as can they wear them constantly, we were careful to consider some of those serious moments where it may be more appropriate not to wear a costume to keep the scene impactful, being considerate so that players can have the best experience. So the vibe I am getting from this is, I think it was mentioned in another interview that there's going to be one location where we can change constantly, and I've narrowed it down to both Costa del Sol and the Gold Saucer. And I kind of go in with Gold Saucer just because of what the Gold Saucer is, but then I'm also thinking like big brain of the Costa del Sol, because there is a possibility that we might be able to buy that mansion, and that's where we can do a lot of customization and we collect play arts figures and all of that. So that's why I'm thinking Costa del Sol, but I think the safe bet would be the Gold Saucer. As for costumes we've seen so far, so let's just kind of think about it. We've seen Yuffie in like a kimono in the Gold Saucer during one of the trailers. We've seen Cloud in his like beach costume as he's gone through with the Segway. Looks like we're definitely going to see Barrett in a sailor suit. We've also seen Cloud in a Shinra uniform. I should imagine that we're going to get costumes here, there, and everywhere. Maybe something when they get thrown down to the prison, maybe, because they're going to, maybe it might be a bit challenging and they strip everything away from us. I don't know. I'm just trying to get creative, and I could go on and on about costumes that may be in the game. But I do think that there's going to be one location where we can change them, and I'm very excited to see Barrett in a sailor's costume, and Red 13 in that Shinra outfit as well. I think we're definitely going to get that. They're going to pull it off somehow. If Red 13 can sit on a Chocobo the way he does, he can fit into a Shinra uniform, no problem, and fool everybody on that ship. So there we have it, guys. That is the interview from RPGSite. Again, link down below if you want to check it out for yourself. Thought I'd throw some of my thoughts and opinions out there as well for us to kind of discuss. And I'm really excited to get more and more Rebirth news. I know that we've been getting more Rebirth news and I've not covered it as much, but I really want to kind of space it out nicely, and I don't want to kind of throw each and everything that comes out at you, because I want to consume it for myself and let it sit and see what I can think and what I can do from there. And this is one of those videos, and I'm just very excited just to see some of these answers, and I just want to share that excitement with you, because if you didn't guess already, I am excited for Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. My question to you is, are you? I really hope you are, or you wouldn't be watching a video of me just kind of like fan theorying and kind of getting excited over these little things. So that is that. Thank you for watching. If you want to see more Final Fantasy VII Rebirth content, please consider subscribing to the channel. And if you are subscribed, hit the notification bell so you are notified of that content. And as always, get involved in the comment section below. Thank you for watching, and until next time, I'll catch you on the flip side.